as long as possible and make it the best game it can be. And anything that risks its longevity by blocking us from adding other pieces of content or hurting the economy, like, these things matter if we want to keep this game around for years and years. So in the long run, it's going to benefit you guys as well.
And then there's dropping items in PvP, which we did specifically poll, which we should not have done. We regret polling that. Because, why in the world would it be a good idea that when somebody's attacking you, you just throw your sword on the floor so they can't have it in the loot, so that you've got a chance of running back and picking it up again before they can see it? How that makes sense? That's just silly. And yet, no, we couldn't get that through a poll. So we've done it anyway. I hope you understand why, and we regret polling that kind of thing before. We'll be more careful in future.
The key thing to bear in mind is that as custodians for your game, effectively, we need to make sure that the game is playable in X amount of years. We have a responsibility to you guys so you can keep playing old school RuneScape. We have a responsibility to the company to make sure it stays a relevant business, and we have a responsibility to the staff to make sure they can be employed on the game. So we have to sit there and make sure the decisions we're making are for the long-term success. I'm sure none of you would want us to sit here and think, right, okay, this will be the best thing for something right now, because that's the best decision for the game, for the team, for the company. We need to think, what are we looking at 5 years down the line, how it's going to look 5 years down the line, and how we can make sure that the game is still around 5 years down the line. And that's why we have to make decisions. And as Ash said, some of them aren't going to be popular. Some aren't going to be popular right now, but in 12 months' time, I think we will see the benefits of these things, and we will continue to see that over the coming years.
To make a couple points here. First of all, though obviously the spam in the chat right now is quite, riotty, if that's a word. We have seen many people express their appreciation for the update today. I just wanted to point that out. I've seen a lot of people very happy. People even saying, I have a void peer, but realistically I knew this was a good update and needed. So it's nice to see.
Things I mentioned in there as well, EOC, for example, which is a meme in itself for old school, but there is no situation that I can see where EOC would be a positive thing for old school, either now or in 5 years' time. So that's not going to happen. And other things such as that as well. It's a case of trying to be honest with you guys, trying to be honest with us, and trying to be honest with everybody to make sure that the game in 5 years is what you want it to be. And in 5 years' time, you don't want the game to be with EOC. I very much doubt you want to see Squid of Fortune in the game in 5 years' time, so that won't happen. So it's all about making sure that it is what you want. And sometimes we have to make the tough decisions like this, which will upset a group of people, but we need to make sure that in 5 years' time the game is balanced, that you're still not all going to Zulrah. We haven't been able to put in new range stuff because Void's upsetting the balance there, or all the bosses, new bosses come in, have got to be more cost effective than Zulrah, so therefore you can turn up to a boss and make 1 million GP an hour. We've got to make sure in 5 years' time that is not the case.
I'd also consider, if we had, stayed back in 2015 saying, no, we're not going to stop AFKing because, you didn't vote for it, and we're listening to the players. That's not actually listening to the players at all. That's hiding behind the players, and it would be, cowardly, I think.
Yeah.
One of the topics that does come up with anything like this is that all these players got to take advantage out of it, and now everyone can't take advantage out of it.
Yes.
That is, of course, true, but we have to make the decision that's best for the future of the game. I mean, ideally, we don't let anyone else take advantage out of it because it's not good for the game. We don't want these items coming in so quickly.
It's more of a
we don't want you to
jealousy
be able to get these resources so easily to make the game a lot easier for yourself.
It's more of a jealousy thing at that point, and we're not going to revert anybody who has killed 10,000 Zulrah and take away their stuff. This is the most we can do at this point. The longer we leave it, the worse it gets. I don't know if you've used the reference of just ripping the Band-Aid off, but that's pretty much it.
All we can do is apologise that it took a long time on some of these things. Yeah. But ultimately, the right decision has to be made in the end. And often in the past, not just with old school, but RuneScape, in the whole of history of RuneScape, a lot of things end up being left for a long time, and then we say, oh, we can't do it, it's been there for so long, but we should do it. We shouldn't ever hit the point where we don't fix an issue.
I'd also consider that, considering the response from social media, the chat, they might understand why we don't do that kind of thing lightly and why it maybe took a little longer than it maybe should have done.
You need to make sure all decisions are right.
So a couple of other things I wanted to talk about was that we do sympathize with players who have dedicated their accounts around Void builds. I know, actually, I think I was checking out a content creator, Serp Hugger, spent a long time on getting a Serp helm pure, and that's very unfortunate timing. It's like, people will joke about it, but realistically, speaking as a player, we wish that wasn't the case, obviously. Again, it's best to tackle it as soon as we can at this point, at least. The damage is done. And the longer we would have left it, the worse it would have gotten. That being said, an idea has come up on Reddit that I wanted to discuss in relation to Void. If we can move on to that point, I think we've covered about everything else.
Did you say regarding Void?
Yes.
That's not moving very far on, but sure.
Well, sure, but we're moving on to player suggestions at least. So, this was a popular suggestion on Reddit. This was one that we considered actually quite heavily when we were discussing this. So, Salidian says, since Elite Void requires a minimum of 100 combat, it'll be less overpowered in PvP. Make Elite Void keep the 20% range damage bonus. So a couple notes I wanted to point out against this. First of all, we didn't make this change strictly for PvP. As you know, we also nerfed it for PvM. It wasn't as... That's pretty much what I just said right there. The fact that it was best in slot gear for many bosses in our game, it was a free, non-degradable, apart from PvP, armor set obtained by much easier means than purchasing something as expensive and high requirement as Armadyl, or if you're an Iron Man trying to obtain the entire Armadyl set. Also, it completely blocked us from offering any remotely decent range gear that we obviously wouldn't be able to offer. So, i.e. Twisted Armor that we proposed to come with raids couldn't stand a chance because Void was there. Now, realistically, we would have liked to offer something like Twisted Armor, obviously, something better for raids, for the newest, at the time, most challenging, most difficult, high tier content. But unfortunately, there was a blocker there. It was a massive... There was this gap between like Black D'hide and then there's Void all the way up here, and we can't go anything in between because it's simply not going to get used. So now we actually have that possibility. Bringing it down to 15%, it doesn't match the rest of the Void set. Yeah. Doesn't make sense, and it's still at that point extremely strong. Elite set aside, the normal set with 42 requirements, being that good for a free set is just ridiculous.
That said, just on this, Void is still useful. If you're attacking creatures with very low defense, that are the lower end, rather than bosses, it is still better than Armadyl. Because a lot of Armadyl's extra DPS comes from its accuracy rather than its damage. And because Void literally buffs damage, if you don't really need the accuracy, it's so much more effective. So when on your Slayer tasks, you might find that it's better.
As we may have mentioned...
Well, Slayer task is a bad example because Slayer Helm. But.
Right. As we may have mentioned, and you know what, actually, just real quick, thinking back to PKing in the old days, if we're going to talk nostalgia here, people actually used to use range tanks as a viable PK build. Black D'hide body, Rune legs, Rune kite, Rune helm. Like, that was a thing, and it still can be a very strong thing. With Void, I was watching some people PKing with Void earlier, and it's hard to gauge how it is right now with the community. Obviously, the community of tens of thousands of players testing it for an hour is more than we can do in a month's time, right? So we'll check, I don't know, I don't even know how to word this, but we'll come back and we'll look at it. Same thing with the Serp helm. I don't know if we've discussed what we were considering doing with that as well, but we've put it, one strength bonus below the Nesnot helm?
No, it's 3 matching the Nesnot helm.
Is it matching? Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
However, since it consumes scales while it does it, that's quite expensive. It does protect you from poison without requiring inventory spaces, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were throwing around... we're still up in the air, but we were throwing around making it 4 strength. I think Serp Helm stood out as the one thing that people are particularly upset about.
Yeah, that was the thing.
But we'll only do it if we think that is the right thing to do for the game health as well.
Similar to Void, and as we've said with other pieces of content, we want to make things that are best in slot for certain things as a niche use, so maybe a certain boss or an activity or a Slayer task, but not for everything in the game. The Serp Helm, again, was best for everything in the game, and it would continue to be for who knows how long, years, because we can't offer anything better. It's not going to pass the poll, and it's not going to be better. So
yeah, just back on Void a second. Like, I like the idea of armor that doesn't really give you much in defense, but gives you great offensive bonuses. But I'd rather add that as a drop from something, and a way that it's an actual tradable item that you have to pay money for or get from a tough to kill boss. And that, we've got a gap there if we wanted to replace it, because it's not inherently bad that something like Void exists. I think a lot of the issue comes from the fact you can just go on AFK pest control, and anyone can do that. Even if you're low level, you can go and do the easy boat and get it.
So with the Serp helm, one of the complaints is people saying, well, now you just have to complete a quite easy quest, pay 60k, and you have the new best in slot. Well, arguable for many situations with the it's not helm, however you say it. If that is a problem, I mean, some people prefer it that way, but if that is still a problem, we can pull offering a better helmet in the future from future content. Future content is very much a thing. We can look at potentially a new raid, a new boss, whereas previously we wouldn't have been able to even consider offering a helmet with any of these things, but now we actually can. And if there is something that you think is better that you'd like to have in the helmet slot, then we can offer it.
Everyone keeps asking us for new raids, and we'd love to do new raids, but we've really struggled to come up with the rewards for the last one. We went through a lot of different iterations, and with the current state of things, like, we couldn't offer new armors.
Yeah, but again, we'll you know, let things settle for a little bit. People were outraged after the first 30 minutes without even trying anything. So
I would be quite happy to see Elite Void be more substantially better than Standard Void than it currently is. I mean, it's called Elite, and names aren't everything, but it would be nice for it to have a bit more. Not necessarily as much more as some of the numbers that have been thrown around here. Certainly not what Void was doing before.
Yeah, I think it's very reasonable to give it a little bit.
Yeah, it's something we'll have to really sit in a meeting and
it's something to discuss still.
They're not short of suggestions for what that could be, so I'm sure something will arise.
I'd be much happier for that. Really the biggest thing, obviously for PvP, that wouldn't be a problem because obviously peers, well, you need, 100 combat for Elite.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that, but PVM, again, we don't want to devalue the best in slot, or what should have been the best in slot, Armadillo, obviously, actually costing money and having actual requirements, but potentially bringing that up to the Elite Void for the PVM side of things, and PvP even, something we can consider. I think that's about all I've said.
Well, they've suggested plenty of numbers. I'm seeing 73 keep turning up in the chat now. They're not having 73%.
So a couple of the notes I have here. With the amount of otherwise difficult to obtain resources such as tree seeds, sharks, etc., will you be looking at offering any better alternative methods of collecting them now?
I assume if it comes down to if what they're asking for is buffs to this thing, it's probably not the right way to do it. I think new content is the right way to introduce these things, better if it's desired. Fossil Island is a thing.
It might be worth considering what the items are in question. Now, the seeds, those are commonly loot drops, so the idea of coming from a monster is not unreasonable. On the other hand, where we're looking at logs and coal and other resources of that nature, which are really meant to come from skills, the game can't just be about PVM, even for people who only want to do the PVM bits of it. It makes sense to try and get it more from the skill, even if it's not from, actually fishing sharks. We should find something to do with fishing that would give them instead.
I like the idea of guilds and playing around with the guilds, see what they can do.
Well, quite. I had a suggestion sent in earlier for exactly that. The fishing guild and bonuses that could be applied there, possibly with diary logs around them. Similarly with, Ed was working on a design for a mining guild update.
Yeah, that's cool.
I forget the details though.
Yeah.
Certainly the invisible +7 buff you get in the woodcutting guild, that is something I do expect us to offer across more guilds in future.
Yeah. So there's many more interesting ways to get these new content in, which I think would be quite cool.
And I don't think it should always be from PVM.
No, I agree.
Another question was, did you nerf this so that you could offer the new best in slot upgrade to the Naetsnot helmet that you spoke of before? As Mod Wolf was speaking of a quest he was working on in his tap time, and he would like to offer an upgraded Naetsnot helm that would potentially be the new best in slot. That is not the reason, obviously.
We wouldn't have let him do that.
Yeah, after speaking to him before this, he said he's probably considering doing something else as a reward for that instead. There you go. Potentially accepting ideas.
Yeah, these tin-foil hat moments aren't
pretty much, yeah.
aren't the best things in the world.
That's about all my... Oh, why wasn't the blowpipe nerfed as well? Was a question as well.
Do you think it should have been? I mean,
Well,
not you, possibly them.
And we discussed this, and we realized, a lot of the newer bosses were balanced around ideas that the blowpipe would be used. We obviously nerfed it for PvP. That seemed to do the job. Haven't seen nearly as many complaints.
It came out in the discussions, but eventually we came to the conclusion that we don't think it warrants enough.
We don't do these lightly.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there was a lot of discussion goes on, a lot of looking at the information that's out there and what you guys think and what you guys are talking about online as well. So a lot of research goes in.
Cool. And we've talked about everything else, the Kremja shop and all that.
We actually haven't talked about the Kremja shop, and I haven't seen the spamming about it either.
I think everybody accepts that as a good thing to have done.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a single mention of it.
We did have a query about whether we had done it because of player sentiment and to shut up whiners, I think the player is asking, rather than for anything to do with the actual health of the game. And while it's true that the news post focuses more on how people felt about it, if we consider what that shop was doing, it generated a fair bit of cash. Like, it really did. More than High Alchemy. You don't really need more coins coming into the game from a thing like that. And also, alchemy is still a thing. We like to use nature runes, and people have been on us to try and make nature runes more used, more sinks for nature runes. We hope that by making the shop less profitable than alching, certainly for any item of any substantial value, we could address both of those birds with one stone.
Okay. Plenty moving on in the chat, also plenty of questions and all that. So I imagine this will be something that we will definitely come back to next week as well. And we also have Mod Maz on the keyboard grabbing questions from the chat. So good luck. But we will move on and try to get into the actual questions today.
The one thing we haven't spoken about this week's update is the world map, which is no small feat of technical ability that Ash and, I'll get the names right, that you and
Mod Genesis
and Atlas
Well done, Matt.
have put together. I said, yeah, thanks. Wouldn't have done it without you.
I did inquire whether Genesis took his name because, he creates the thing that underlies the world or something, a kind of creation name might suit him.
Atlas is probably more of a Freudian name.
He holds the whole thing up.
Holds the whole thing up.
An atlas is a big book, a big map in it.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, maybe both work.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was not an easy thing, and I think every single one of us who saw it have been incredibly impressed about what it is and how it works, and yeah.
Haven't seen a single complaint.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It is beautiful, and it is something that I think everybody's wanted. So I think that's good. Well done, Genesis, Ash, and Atlas.
And I'll clap the other two.
Yeah.
You guys can clap in the chat.
Yeah. That was a really half-assed clap, wasn't
It was quite pathetic, yeah. All right.
There we go, that's better.
And then there's the other thing from Mod Atlas in today's update, which I think missed the news post, sorry. The click zones. There's been a lot of... The way the game calculated click zones for NPCs, scenery, even objects on the ground was not ideal. It would render a whopping very big rectangle that tended not to overlap the geometry of the item at all. Like if you've got a small thin thing like a leprechaun off to the side of the screen, then its click zone would often be, like that, even a box that had nothing to do with the geometry of the leprechaun at all. So Mod Atlas has written a whole new algorithm launched in today's update that calculates a lot more accurately where the bounding box ought to be. And he's rolled that out across NPCs and scenery and also items on the ground. That one didn't quite go to plan in fixed mode, but the second reboot at about
Half an hour ago.
Yeah, about 4:45 our time. That will hopefully have solved the thing with items on the ground in fixed mode. Obviously, if there's a particular thing that you're trying to click on that is still a problem for you, right-click the report button in the game and let the testers know what the thing is, be it an object on the ground or a piece of scenery. We saw some people complaining about the Ardoin rooftop course, although I gather that also was covered by Mod Atlas's fix that went out just before this live stream. So hopefully things are mostly okay, but if there's more, right-click the report button, you'll find a bug report form where you can tell the testers what it is.
Beautiful.
All right. Are we ready for the questions? Here we go.
23 minutes in.
The first question's a bit interesting, but there's a lot of support for it this week. The Sick Flux says, the current team is absolutely stellar. It's clear that the old school team is quite separate from RS3. It's very clear that a lot of the vision for the game is community driven. However, there's a clear split between the die-hard traditionalists interested in a more genuine 2007 experience, and then there's others who define old school as anything introduced prior to EOC, including dungeoneering and summoning, HD, etc. So we said, trying to get to the questions here. It's a big post. Does the old school team have a vision that includes lines that absolutely will not be crossed? I'd love to read a long blog post or watch a video on the old school channel, better defining the intent and vision of old school going forward. There's a lot to this, but you get the question.
Yeah, there's I interpret the first thing you mentioned in there about RS3 and old school being very separate. The teams are very close. For example, the engine team, the Atlas and Genesis, they work for RuneScape as well, so there's an awful lot goes on there. We also use a lot of supporting groups, such as community management, such as the marketing team, such as QA, and we do flit in and out, different people come in and out of the teams as and when we need them. When we were launching raids, we had an awful lot of the RuneScape QA come and help us out as well, and we do play tests with the whole QA team, what have you. So there's an awful lot of crossover there.
In fact, those QA testers, a lot of them were staying late to work on old school after hours as unpaid overtime, which was just very kind of them. I think they just liked raids and liked working on old school for a bit.
Absolutely, yeah. So the teams are very close. But as for content and lines we won't cross, that is primarily decided by you. The way I view old school is on August the 14th, I think it was, 2007 was when the game all round about then, when the actual game save was. That's the start point of the journey that we're currently on. And that journey is being decided by you. It may include content which came out pre-EOC. It may include content that comes out post-EOC, although probably not that much. However, you guys will guide what that journey looks like, and that's what we try and do. And so the lines are decided by you. There's some lines that we've done a lot of work earlier this year with the brand team, deciding what their old school brand is, and some of the lines we put in there to say what the game currently is and what those lines currently are. So the key things we came out with were obviously the game is community focused, that you guys are the most important thing in there. I'm trying to think what else we had in there. We had about trying to be as open and honest about you, not just directly to you about what we're thinking and what we're doing, but also in the marketing that we do, that everything we do portrayed online is honest and is what you guys expect it to be, and that you can believe what we're saying. There was a third one that I can't remember.
Yeah, no MTX.
Yes, there's no MTX was in there. Was one of the big lines that was in there, obviously, because it just won't work for you guys.
You wouldn't buy it, you'd quit.
Yeah, quite. So there was that. We had the last one was creating this sort of cultish atmosphere around the game, so that we all feel as if we're part of something special, that we're all part of this one thing, which sort of we spend our time doing, whether it is our time making the game or your spare time playing the game, is we all have an investment in this thing and trying to make this sort of cultish feeling behind what old school is. So you're all cult members now.
Does that make us the cult leaders?
Well, I'm sure there'll be many memes about this on Reddit over the next week or so. But that's the sort of thing that we do. We sit there and try and figure out what the game is to us, what it is to you, and how that works. So those are the lines. But like I said, the lines can change depending on what you guys want. And if you guys suddenly want to go and have Squeal of Fortune and Treasure Hunter and all the other stuff, we'll do it quite happily. Don't think you will, but
happily may not be the word he's looking for.
Yeah, but if it makes you happy, it makes us happy. However, with stuff like today, we have to make sure that the long-term game's looked after as well.
Go on. I think You said a lot of cool stuff and good stuff. But that didn't come out well.
You said a lot of cool stuff.
I mean, I think the chat are hitting on something. They said, EOC, yes. To be honest, our whole work ethic for the last 4 years has been to work and try and sneak in EOC. That's absolutely what we're doing.
Yeah. Didn't that come across in what I said? I started, every sentence I started was the first letter, which is spelt out. We will at EOC. Yeah, I mean,
hidden clues.
Yes, you'll find a Helm's Raid World if you keep doing this.
To touch on what Matt said with the health of the game, and that this obviously these being necessary changes even, one of the examples was obviously the wilderness. I don't know if people have stepped in the wilderness, and well, most likely a good chunk of you have stepped into Bounty Hunter in the last month or so, but it was very obvious the majority of the players in there being in Void, obviously depending on the combat bracket, but to hopefully be able to refresh that and see a new meta or different combat styles, and we don't want it to strictly just be melee, but to see that grow and hopefully bring people back. And we don't want the Serpentine Helm either to be the only thing used by higher levels in the wilderness either. So we want to try to revive the wilderness as much as possible with Bounty Hunter, and we have further ideas, which we'll potentially be bringing to you in the near future, or maybe even at RuneFest, but there's plenty there. So yeah, PK is going to have hope.
I've been hearing the term the meta a lot today. It's a nice expression for it.
Overall, though, we genuinely just want to make you happy and give you a game that you all really enjoy playing and want to keep playing.
Mm-hmm. All right, moving on. Plong has a suggestion, which is a new Barrows solo boss reachable by obtaining a new item, the Crypt Key, from a Barrows chest. You would push the Barrows chest to uncover a secret entrance, climb down the ladder, use your key on the door to test your might against the new Barrows sister, Rowan the Defiant.
Rowan?
Rowan.
Oh, Rowan.
Or Ronan. Notable drops include a new set of 75 defense equipment, including new mace and shield, the mace having the highest weapon slot prayer bonus and highest one-handed crush bonus. There's a lot more in depth in terms of the rewards and balancing, but what do you think of the idea?
I think we ought to ask Ronan whether we should call it Ronan the Defiant. Ronan, should we call it Ronan the Defiant? It's very defiant, isn't he? Come on, that was good.
Wow.
That was planned and everything.
It's been a very long time since we got to talk about the ideas for a Barrow's sister, although one of our colleagues has been known to talk about Barrow's dirty uncle.
Yes, that was John.
Exposed. You want to say the one you said to Ian, Matt?
You got, sorry?
The fantastic joke you said to Ian earlier in his stream.
Ian.
Spam.
Oh, no, let's not do that.
I thought that was funny.
Yeah, anyway, so another Barrows person. I'd love to have more Barrows people.
Yeah, there's another suggestion for Barrows in here, which we will get to, but as for this one, you know what, there's a lot of support in general asking for new Barrows content, whether that's an expansion or something new from it.
Barrows is fun.
I like the way Barrows works. How about a completely separate minigame that works in a similar way?
No, I like the storyline of Barrows because you've got this wonderful story that just hasn't been explored yet, and I'd quite like to take that storyline further as well because I think that'd be quite a cool thing.
We don't want it?
Who or what?
Can we straw poll this? Would you like to see additional content added to Barrows? How much interest is there for something new for Barrows, whether that's a new set, a new boss that offers, not necessarily a new set, maybe just a weapon?
It's possibly that's making pet idea that keeps turning up over and over again.
People have suggested, like the purple see-through kind of shader type thing.
I would like that on an animal rather than a person, because I think on a person that looks really wrong as a pet following you around. However, if we were to introduce new Barrows content, for example, a third Barrows boss, it doesn't have to be a person, third, sixth, seventh, however many there are. They wouldn't have to be a person, it could be the Barrows.
You can't even get us out without laughing.
Yeah, so this straw poll is just to gather a general consensus, yes or no for new Barrows stuff.
So a Barrows pet, which it turns itself into a boss. So you could have the Barrows dog or the Barrows fierce cat. I think we've got a fierce cat pet anywhere, have we?
We have wily cats, but they're not what you call.
Yeah, so maybe some sort of puma or lion, or some three-headed lion type, thing going on.
I just had this image when you were talking about how it shouldn't be, a see-through pet walking around as a human. Just this pink little man following you around.
There's definitely some strong
It does,
support
doesn't it?
there.
Exactly. So therefore, if we introduce this extra bit of content, which is, a creature Barrow's boss, then we can introduce a Barrow's pet and have it as the little see-through pink version of it.
I'm trying to remember what they did in RS3, but I think I liked it.
Right, so
Obviously, we wouldn't be offering that for the record, but there's plenty we can offer there. But for now, just to gather general interest in whether you'd like to see something new added to Barrows, 83% saying yes out of 3,000 votes. That's a lot of people,
impressive, yeah.
a lot of interest.
You know, the Annals of the Damned. We put on the description that it was an heirloom of an ancient family of Mauritania. And, those 6 brothers must have had some kind of family.
Wow. What's our parents?
6 brides for 6 brothers, or
Yeah, no, indeed.
This is
3
typically the
brides, 3
point.
grooms for 6 brothers.
Somebody at this point will usually create a really cool suggestion, which I might read out on next week's Q&A stream related to Barrows, so looking forward to that. Let's move on, though. Cole says, with the nerf to Zulra's drop table and raw sharks, can fishing rates for sharks be looked at? It's extremely slow gathering sharks.
Well, tying to what Matt was saying earlier about guilds, that might be the kind of way to go with it, with perhaps additional requirements rather than just the fishing level.
Okay.
There may also be something in Fossil Island.
Ooh,
Can the players hear what she's saying?
I don't know.
Probably not.
Well, they'll never know.
potentially something in Fossil Island.
That's
That's
now
what
they
she
know.
said.
Okay.
It is.
Daddy says, can we get a never show this again option for the warning at the entrance to crash site? That's the demonic gorillas entrance.
Whenever we keep putting those in, people turn up next week and say, can you have it back again? But
Never is a strong word.
I'm sure we could. Jed wrote that one, didn't he?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm sure it won't be a problem.
Right. Till says, can you share pictures or stories of game content that's been released that was funny, stressful, or didn't go as planned, such as unexpected bugs or things you wanted that did not make the cut?
Is he asking here for pictures of bugs that did come out or bugs that didn't come out? Because these days, if we get a really funny bug before launch, we tend to tweet it.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would guess like an in-game screenshot. For example, Lisa, the LMS NPC, had her arms kind of detached recently. That stuff all makes its way to Twitter.
I wonder if I could ever find that picture from the Gnome Copters back in the day where, due to a render order issue, a character was sitting there with their hand over their lap. And due to the render order, it looked like if you were wearing a skirt, your hand was kind of... So naturally got that fixed before launch, but it looked hilarious.
I'm 12, what is this?
Ask your mum.
Also, I would guess they're mostly referring to graphical bugs. Maybe one for our artist if he is mic'd up. Mod Ghost?
If I see a graphical bug, I just tend to fix it because I've often got quite a lot to be getting through, so I don't normally take screenshots of it. But I will make a mental note in future if people are interested.
Would you like Mod Ghost to tweet out funny graphical bugs?
I think as well as that, we also like to kind of keep things for sneak peeks a lot more now, as opposed to just constantly tweeting out images on Twitter. So a lot of the time it'd be spoilers that we can't really release.
That's true. Lots of yeses in the chat.
There are lots of yeses.
He's going to have to make more mistakes now to
I am.
justify this.
I think I'm going to intentionally make mistakes just to sate their appetite.
Sorry.
All right.
You all right?
We're one less person. Alex says, can the enchanted room in the Magic Training Arena be reworked? How old is that room?
Early 07, I'm thinking.
What'd you think?
Not quite clear what kind of rework's being requested.
I imagine just something to make it more pleasing to use, something more fun. How is it? I haven't done it from it, if I'm honest.
Well, we totally did rework the telegraph thing.
Oh, where before you'd grab it and you'd be stood still for 10 seconds before you could move around the room and get the next one. But you reworked it so that you could move while the thing moved along the room and made it a lot nicer to play. substantially nicer to play.
People are
So we can
saying-
certainly do that kind of thing to the other rooms if there's a usability improvement that would help.
It seems to be in reference to bots. So if we can make something to combat bots.
Well, we might more need Modware and his staff to be able to get a few more reports out of there.
But making
They're
note
constantly
about
having discussions about how they can better handle the bot situation, and they're always striving to improve that. So
The thing is, if we redesign the content to try and make it a bit less bottable, then that might slow down the bots for maybe a couple of days, and then they will adapt because they've no reason not to, and they would be less likely to object than the legit players were to finding their meta has changed. But there's probably some stuff in there that could be improved. I know the code could be improved. It's ancient.
Oh, all right. I think it's about time we head over to the sneak peek of the week, I'm being told at least, so let's do that.
I'm not a musician, I'm an artist, so I'll stick to what I'm good at, and we'll just have a look at these NPCs. So what I've done with these NPCs is I've just set them aside from each other. This is the original NPCs you can see here, and these are the ones that are going to be released in Inferno next Thursday. So I've tried to follow the same beats. We've got roughly the same sort of anatomy here. So we've got a biped for this one just here, and as you can see on the original, he had cannons on his back which fired these spikes. So I've tried to follow the same theme just here and given him cannons on his back for this one as well. This is the one that was designed on livestream, and you can see it's a quadruped and it uses its tail to fire projectiles at people. So on the livestream we kind of made it a quadruped again and also made its tail functional for projecting things like a catapult. And of course you've probably seen this on social media and on dev blogs as well. We've just got the reworked version of Jad. This one's called JalTok-Jad. Jal is, in the Tsar language, it means not Tsar, basically. So all of these names start with Jal for all of these. So I'll just go through the names now. I've just got a list here. So this one just here is Jalzil. This one is Jalzak. And this one is JalTok-Jad. Okay, so in the editor, I'm just going to show you a few animations that we've got so you can compare the NPCs. This one, we've actually just got facial movements on it now. And I'm just going to turn the skeleton on as well, so I can just show you some of the functionality that we've got for the NPC too, for use in animation. So we'll select him, he's Jalzil. So these cannons actually scale, so you can see them close up when they get loaded, and then they can open up when projectiles are fired. Of course, we've got the mouth here, which can open and close. And then we've got all the other obvious stuff, which is just kind of like arms and legs which move and things like that. So we'll close the ready animation for this guy. I won't save that. And I will just open the attack range one. Okay, so let's just close this. Turn off the skeleton first. And we'll get rid of the widget. So if I press play, you can see both of these have animations where they fire their cannons. So this one sort of kneels down and fires his spikes. The newer one actually loads his hands into his shoulder cannons and he'll fire them at you when that's in the game. And you can see as well his hands grow back after he's fired. Okay, and I'll just run a quick walk cycle as well, I think, just so you can see how he moves around. So you can see he's quite heavy and slightly lopsided because of this big sort of growth that's on his back as well. And I think I'll just show you his melee attack too. Punches you right in the face. Okay, right, so we'll turn that one off. And we will turn these NPCs invisible. So we'll get rid of this one, and we'll get rid of his equivalent as well. So the next NPC will be Jalzak, which you can see I named incorrectly throughout the entire project, and Kieran just informed me today that it's actually called Jalzak. So. Okay, and we will load in this one just here. So you can see that it fires projectiles using its tail. And with this one just here, you can see I followed the same sort of animation as the original. So it's just basically making things feel a lot more elaborate and a lot fresher. But at the same time, it still kind of feels like it's the same movement and the same sort of anatomy and the same sort of process that the character will go through visually. Okay. I'll just show you a walk cycle for this guy as well. So let's just close that animation there. And I will just pull this interface across because some of these names are a bit revealing for the animations. So just see what, just slowly reveal characters. Yeah, I know. Let's do that again. Right, there we go. This is a cool animation. This is ready animation. Yeah. So that's what he'll just look like when he's standing normally. And we've got this one as well, which is a bit fancy. So that will do something during the fight as well. Cool. Okay, and I did say I'd show his walk animation, so I will keep to my word and just load that up. Where are we? Yeah. That's what he looked like when he's walking around. So with their walk cycles as well, you can see that they kind of, if you look at them from the top down, their hips move, their shoulders move, and they kind of oscillate from side to side as well. So I've tried to get a lot of movement in there. It keeps stopping, but what I need to do to just rectify that, you can see that all the animations are different lengths down here. So if I just go to this one just here and turn off his animation. Okay. Yeah, there we go, it's better. So you see him just moving around there without the stagger. And you can also see like his toes move and things like that when he's walking around as well. Okay, so that's enough from that one. And we will go to the main event, which is Jad. Let's just turn this off as well. So he's called Lord Magnus in the repository, but his name is JalTok-Jad. You all know him. And we will load up JalTok-Jad as well for a comparison. So let's go to Lord Magnus. Right, so this is his ready animation. That was the original one. So you can see he kind of just scuffs the floor whilst looking at you with intent. So if we load this one up, you can see I've tried to copy the same sort of animation, but he's a bit more sadistic in this new animation. Yeah. So he kind of gently caresses the floor whilst looking at you, ready to pummel you. So from a front view, it looks very intimidating in game when you see him kind of staring at you like this. He's also huge as well. And we'll cut to, I'll show you his magic attack as well. And I think we'll call it quits. You've got lots of questions to get through. So, Lord Magnus, make you go there. Let's close this one. And I think it was attack fire. Yeah, so he stands up in game. The odd thing about this is in game, what they actually do is they play this animation backwards again. So by the end of it, he fires his fireball, then he sits back down again. So that's why it seems to be jumping back to the floor in the editor. So if we go to this guy here, I haven't done that with my animation. I've made it a full-length animation, so you can see what he does for that. Made magic just there. So you can see he stands up quite neatly. And I've actually managed to get it so the rig for this works as both a biped and a quadruped, which was no easy feat in old school. There we go. And I'm just going to turn off Lord Magnus just so I can show you. I think I'll show you his death animation as well, because it's kind of fun. Okay. I can hear yawns over the other side of the room. Maybe that's my cue to stop talking and get back to them. Sorry, this will be the last thing. So yeah, he just falls down dead on the ground. I love the way his hand sort of slides off his face just as he hits the ground. That's a nice little touch. I love death animations. They're so much fun. It's probably my favourite animation to do. Don't read into that too much. Cool, there you go. I hope you enjoyed that. The Inferno is coming out next Thursday. I can't wait to see your reactions. Thank you.
I will say, like a few times now, not every time, a few times now, I'm wowed. That was just like the somersault for the I don't even know what he's called, the tadpole looking guy, the 4x4.
JalTok-Jad.
Yeah, wow. That was so impressive. That is so cool to see.
Looking forward to next Thursday.
Yeah. New face on the couch. Do you want to introduce yourself?
I am Mod Atlas, otherwise known as @JagXGuard.
Look, it's the engine team.
I'm not the entire engine team, thankfully.
So, for the first time since Ian was on the couch with us back a long time ago, we have somebody from Engine on the couch. If you have any engine questions, don't
send them to me.
We have a couple in the chat already, fortunately. So, there's a ClickZone question asking, what method did you use before versus what method does it use now to determine the click zone?
How best to describe that? So the old system was a very rudimentary calculation. It did actually use the 3D radius of the object, but it then essentially took that and used it to do a very rough 2D box calculation to work out if your mouse was anywhere near the object. For most large things, it then bothered to do a quick test to see you were actually over the object on screen. But that box was wildly inaccurate as you moved further and further out to the edges of the screen, to the point where you could end up with something whose model was kind of shifted over like that at the edge of the screen, and a box which kind of made absolutely no sense. So the new system actually uses what in games terms would be a proper collision detection system to track where your mouse is in relation to the model on screen.
So is that similar to the Castle Wars flags? I know we're kind of tricky.
Yeah, Castle Wars flags was the worst for that because of the fact they're such a tall, thin entity. In the centre of the screen, it's dead on, and the box was completely overlapping it. But at the edge of the screen, because of camera projection, if you imagine you've got a circle around you, a sphere around you, as it projects outwards, it bends more and more that way. And the box is always a rectangle, so it never tracks. So it needed to slant with the model on screen. So that's what the new system does. It properly tracks it, properly accounts for the size of the models. So everything is incredibly accurate now, although some things may be a little too accurate versus the gratuity that it used to have. So.
It'll be nice to not have to add huge, nearly invisible polygons to things.
Yeah,
to
there were some interesting decisions that were taken to account for that system.
Flags had an invisible box around their pole to try and help with this.
Yeah, some items that you dropped on the ground had literally a humongous invisible box to make sure that you could definitely click on them.
I think my favorite update from yourself recently was fixing the right-click walk here. So previously,
that thing.
yeah, if you right-clicked walk here, a lot of times it just didn't work, and now it works.
Yep, that was an interesting one to go after.
Yeah.
Shift-click is obviously another one.
Mm-hmm.
That I might have tweeted about and caused you guys a lot of problems.
Interesting one in the chat there, actually, from Maximus, asking if the updated world map that came out today will be available on the website.
It's not planned to do anything with that ourselves. I don't know if you guys have...
Well, the rather than... The thing is, there's different icons on it that turned up today, and the map editor tool can just render us another PNG. We stick that on the website.
There's nothing stopping us exporting what comes out of that tool into the website, so I guess some bits will naturally follow onto it, but there's no plan to add an interactive website map or anything, to my knowledge.
Not that I know.
Unless somebody's working on it in secret.
Yes, they are. For it so much.
I can see somebody asking about escape to close the map. We did have this discussion earlier.
Ah, yes. So could you talk more about the engine work needed to achieve?
Yeah, we'd need to add... There's a feature in RS3 we added years ago to add key bindings to things so that when you press a button, instead of having to click on something, you can press a button and that sends the same instruction to the server. That system is not existent in old school, so we need to backport that.
Question asking if you can include the fairy ring codes on the world map.
Yes, just a matter of data entry. We could have added a lot more data into the map for launch, but felt that if we postpone the map for another month or two to add a bit more data to it, then you'd be even longer without a map. The thing we would need to watch out for is that the world map does listen for the escape key to shut its search feature. So we might need to just make sure that whatever we get that listens for the escape key is able to know when not to listen for the escape key.
Shift escape.
Hold down shift, that works for things, doesn't it?
Speaking of suggested engine updates, you have a massive list, I imagine. Is there any chance we can get a bit of a teaser as to what might come next?
Something hardware.
Can't wait. Wow.
And possibly escape for closing the world map.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Yeah, one of the things we're looking at, which you just alluded to, was how we can make the game perform better, which is what Mod Atlas is working on. So
yes,
More
me
details.
and Mod.
Genesis.
No, Genesis. No, Mod Dark. Mod Dark.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so more details on that as and when. Aussie servers doesn't fall under under Mod Atlas's team. It is that comes under the IT team, but they do need your help to make it work
They do.
as well.
Yeah. That's there are ongoing discussions. It's not something. I'm not going to promise it in August. That seems to be a running theme.
Early August or some
Well, I'd
year.
love if it turned up in August.
Yeah, that would be funny actually.
Yes. Because that
question-
beforehand, we might delay it till August.
A question about frame rate. Are we able to ask if 60 frames per second is...
Not without completely rewriting the client, unfortunately. Everything around that client is keyed around discrete frames being 20 milliseconds. So you're talking about... I mean, that was what NXT did for RuneScape 3, right? I mean, they completely rewrote the system from the ground up to achieve that. We'd be basically talking the same thing.
It strikes me that if what we really need is more people to have a good frame rate now...
Yeah, I'd rather everybody could get 50 frames per second on their 4K monitors than worry about 60 frames a second just yet.
What he did for the world map loading time was lovely. I mean, for players who were around further back, in 2008 when we first got a built-in world map, that thing, you click the button and it tried to load the surface world, you'd be there a while.
Yeah, it turns out there was a very esoteric Java bug that may or may not have been the cause of that in the original client as well, that we discovered by complete accident doing the world map this time around. So that was causing an arbitrary 5-second delay that we, once we realised what was going on and fixed it, it suddenly removed a very large delay.
asking for a cleanse system, is that engine?
It's both. It's
everybody.
us implementing the backbone and then you guys doing a lot of content work to support it.
Maz is something of the expert on clan content around these parts.
When we say clan expert, it's kind of a begrudgingly clan expert.
Does that include...
It's like being a lion tamer. You can make them do what you want, but it's quite hard and not very much, and rather scary.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but did that also include the ability to talk to people in RS3 as well, if you're in an old school clan?
I think you would struggle to do clans across both games and not introduce problems.
It might be simpler and safer not to, really.
Yeah,
I spent a lot of time gathering feedback from players a couple of years back about what they'd like clans to be if we had clan support. Like, turns out Citadels isn't strictly required.
No, Citadels was never required. That came later. We didn't do clans with Citadels originally.
Even
That
a few
came
months
much later.
later, I think.
Yeah, we just did the basic clan stuff to, well, essentially supersede friend chat, or what became friend chat.
The ability to have a place that the clan can go and other people cannot, so they can have a private meeting with public chat, is understandable, but making it a place which you have to level up seems excessive.
I can understand why it happened.
Yes.
And it gave group activities for clans to do for their clan, which makes sense on the great scheme of things. But I think it just turned into a chore after a while because you had to keep doing it. I think a drive when you start a clan, a drive to get you to the top level would be great.
As I recall, the thinking in those days was big social content. Everybody wants to do social content.
Yes.
So it was a big drive to do that.
Yes.
There's also the thought that people in clans statistically seem to play for longer. They stick around for longer. That is a good thing, therefore make people be in clans. The thing is, it doesn't always work that way around. You can look at data, but you still have to interpret it, right?
Yeah, indeed.
And it turned out that, getting people who don't want to be in a clan to be forced to become in a clan to access things like avatars does not make them happier and playing longer.
Oh, somebody's saying OSRS needs EOC. I'll get right on that then. Just go get it from RS3.
Take it back.
Man, don't.
I'm trying to think of the most popular engine requests. Is lobby one of them?
Is lobby one of them?
I don't think so,
I know
really.
there are lots of reasons to put a lobby in from our point of view, but from the player's point of view, I don't know if there is.
Please don't ask for a lobby.
So I mean, it's good as a marketing tool for us to the players, but I don't know how important it is to those guys until it's important to those.
Marketing?
Trying to decipher the spam right now.
You can then have a page where you can advertise all the stuff that you need to advertise.
There are other advantages, which is you kind of remove the need. So obviously with RS3, one of the advantages, and it's one of those things we're going to work on making stronger over the coming years, which is, years he says, which is you don't have to do anything with the website then. You can just launch the game, you get an instant landing point. It doesn't matter whether the website is online or offline. You just have an entry point, and then you don't have to have logged into the game at that point. But, there are advantageous reasons to have them, and so I can think of things we might be persuaded to do them. But
one popular one might be that the welcome screen with the message of the week. Well, while you're looking at that, you are in the game with a thing on your face, so you can't see the game because you've got that display open. So if that were a lobby instead, and you weren't in the game while that was going on, it would be objectively better because you wouldn't have that time when you're in the game without being able to see what's going on around you.
Yeah, obviously.
And if it had a chat box on it, then that's not harmful. On the other hand, of all the things you could be doing for us, I don't see.
It doesn't. To be honest with you, I imagine people want clans before they want a lobby system.
Yeah,
I think so.
So I think the lobby system will be long down the road somehow.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, I can think of 100 things I'd rather have than a
Scalable interfaces is probably pretty high up on that list, actually.
Scalable interfaces, so...
Feel free to talk about it.
Well, okay, so we're working on a hardware mode for old school. I don't want to describe this incorrectly, because the instant I say things like graphics card and HD and all this other stuff, is people get the wrong end of the stick and think we're doing 2008, or they think we're doing RS3 or anything like that. It is going to be 100% exactly the way old school looks now. We've found a way to basically render the game, essentially offload some of the software renderer onto the graphics card. So if you can imagine, you've got your 3D world, it's made up of lots of triangles, i.e. you've got people and NPCs and scenery, and all of those comprise triangles. In the software renderer, we have to draw all of those to the screen in the CPU, and that is hideously slow. I mean, actually arranging where all the models are is pretty expensive, but doing all of that plotting of a 3D triangle into the screen, especially when textures start getting involved, that is ridiculously expensive. And you want to offload that onto the graphics card, which has got hundreds of parallel render cores, and you can literally just be drawing stuff in parallel. Graphics cards are super awesome at that stuff. I mean, they're super awesome at other things related to 3D as well, but recreating old school completely as a proper 3D engine would be a huge amount of work, and B, would change the look of the game the way that HD did, because it involves building a lot of the way the 3D scene is made from the ground up. But we can shift that last mile, that really expensive bit of taking the world and drawing it to the screen, and shift it into the graphics card. So that's our plan.
So the effective use of that will be that anybody who is going to a high resolution will be able to play the game much more smoothly.
It scales to 4K. Like it takes something which is incredibly expensive. The bigger your screen is, and the more pixels you have to draw on the CPU, the more expensive it gets. Whereas on the graphics card, you get all of that. I mean, that's what the graphics cards are built for. You basically get all of that for free. So it becomes a fixed problem at that point. I mean, drawing the game on a 4K monitor with the new renderer that we're prototyping is pretty much as fast as drawing it in fixed screen mode, let alone 1080p or anything like that. So we've got a fully working prototype now. It will need to go through a lot of testing and a lot of checking over to make sure that we haven't inadvertently broken anything. If I had a video, I'd show you, because at some point I might tweet something, because it is literally looking nigh on perfect. I mean, the guy who's working on it, who's actually from the NXT team for RS3, he's so perfectionist with it that there's an ever so slight difference in the lighting. Like literally, the tiniest amount of shading is slightly different, so the contrast is wrong. So, and he's like, oh yeah, that's because that color value is wrong and I need to scale it differently. So he's literally correcting the tiniest things at the moment.
Well, the players are known to get very intense about the colours of things, like halos, for example.
Make sure you leave the green pixel in the construction icon, though.
Yes.
God forbid.
One of the things you may notice if you put it in full size, full screen mode, and you walk around or you rotate the camera, you notice the ground is the banding in the ground, because the ground has all those color bands. It's not a smooth gradient. You notice it wobbles a lot in software because of it's using what's called fixed point arithmetic, which means you get all these rounding errors introduced as it tries to scale everything up. Like it completely goes in GPU because GPU is floating point. So everything just looks more stable, but it looks completely like old school. Like we haven't extended the draw distance. We haven't made everything look super glossy smooth. We haven't added sky boxes.
It's
anything like it's completely, I can't say 100% because the floating point tweaks
as close as possible to the
but
same.
it is 99.9% exactly old school.
But 50 FPS.
But 50
Everywhere.
FPS on a 4K screen. And the other thing we can do is, because we're doing the 3D independently from the 2D, we will be able to render the interfaces at a smaller size and scale them up with the GPU. So you'll get your interface scaling for free, basically.
Yeah. So I mean, the effective update of this will be when it happens, which is going to be, as you said, from Atlas, there's going to be some time yet. So a lot of testing's got to happen. But when it does happen, the game will be smoother for you. It will look exactly the same. Technical stuff will happen on the background, and then you'll get your scalable interfaces. So
I should also add, and it's kind of a caveat of doing this, is because the inevitable questions will be, could you just add shadows? Could you just add this greedy graphical feature? The answer to that is no, because we're not building a 3D engine. We're building a 3D, what's called a rasterizer. It's the way you get rasterization is the way you get a triangle in 3D onto the screen in 2D.
Yeah.
It is literally rasterizing the pixels onto the screen. So we are building a 3D rasterizer.
that's an amazing word.
I look forward to seeing some memes around that word.
You know what's going to happen now.
All I can imagine is a Dalek walking in and going, rasterize!
It's rasterized!
I wasn't expecting that, but okay.
But this sort of ties in really well to what I was talking
Somebody's
about
gone for the Rasta fan, but anyway.
Yeah, I mean, what ties in really well with what I was mentioning earlier about all the teams working together, and this shows just how much work's going on to old school from Jagex as a whole, from across the different teams. I mean, none of you had an idea about the hardware work that we're doing, along with the interface scaling that's happening at the moment. And this is the man, him and his team, who are making it happen. So thank you to him. Be nice.
That being said, if you would like to say thank you, that is at JagXGod on Twitter. And we have unfortunately run out of time for this week's Q&A, but potentially we'll get to see you again on a future one.
Oh, we'll see.
All right. That being
Might
said,
mysteriously
guys,
pop up again.
don't forget it's been a big day for Old School. Check out the news post if you haven't already. RuneFest tickets are still on sale, and we have the Deadman event in Los Angeles coming up on July 1st.
Yes, that's right. And next Thursday, in less than 7 days' time, so 6 and 3/4 days' time, Inferno.
Oh crap, I better go on that.
It's a very exciting time for Old School.
And see if you can find the Helmut Roidwald in the world.
Yes.
Why not?
We can do that.
Okay, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.